Some places are steeped in darkness. Places where the silence screams louder than any cry. In the isolated heart of these woods, an old farmhouse stands sentinel, a place locals avoid, a place where whispers of unspeakable acts linger on the wind. Beneath the decaying facade, hidden from the world, lies a collector's sanctuary, a subterranean prison where human lives are reduced to mere specimens, their terror meticulously curated. Tonight, we descend into that darkness. Elara awoke to a nightmare, trapped in the suffocating silence of a concrete cell. Her captor, Silas Croft, a meticulous artist of suffering, moved with a chilling grace, his silence more terrifying than any threat. But Elara was not alone in his grim gallery. Tonight, we delve into a story of captivity, of the breaking of the human spirit, and the desperate fight for survival against a collector who savors despair. Are you prepared to enter the collector's abode? To witness the chilling reality of his underground gallery? Then steel your nerves, because what unfolds here will crawl under your skin and linger long after the silence returns. Before we descend into this terrifying darkness, make sure you brave souls smash that like button. If you're ready for a truly chilling tale, subscribe to the channel for more horrifying stories that explore the deepest corners of human cruelty. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss the desperate fight for survival in the collector's silence. Let me know in the comments below what you think awaits Elara and the others in the darkness. Can they escape the collector's grasp? Let's descend together if you dare. The biting November wind howled through the skeletal branches of the woods, surrounding Silas Croft's isolated farmhouse, a mournful dirge that mirrored the terror festering within its walls. The house stood hunched against the bleak landscape, its darkened windows like vacant eyes, staring out at a world it had long since severed ties with. Locals whispered of the old Croft place, tales of shadows moving within and screams swallowed by the wind, but they steered clear, their fear a silent testament to the evil they sensed but couldn't name. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of decay, a cloying sweetness battling with the metallic tang of old blood and the musty odor of damp earth. Dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight that pierced the boarded-up windows, illuminating a scene of grotesque order. Tools lay meticulously arranged on a workbench, gleaming knives of varying sizes, lengths of thick rope, and instruments whose purpose was far more sinister than their polished surfaces suggested. In the center of the main room, a heavy wooden trapdoor lay flush with the floorboards, almost invisible beneath a tattered rug. It led down into the collector's sanctuary, his subterranean gallery of despair. Elara awoke to a throbbing agony that pulsed behind her eyes and radiated through her bound limbs. The air in the small concrete cell was cold and damp, clinging to her skin like a shroud. The only light came from a single bare bulb high above, casting harsh shadows that danced with the tremors of her fear. The silence was heavy, absolute, broken only by the frantic thumping of her own heart and the occasional drip of water that echoed like a morbid metronome. Her memories flickered: the late-night walk home, the sudden brutal force from behind, a cloth pressed against her face, the suffocating darkness. Now, she was here, trapped in this cold subterranean tomb, the silence amplifying the terror that coiled in her stomach like a venomous serpent. A sound from above shattered the stillness, the heavy creak of the trapdoor opening, followed by the slow, deliberate descent of footsteps on wooden stairs. Elara's breath hitched in her throat. He was coming, the one who had stolen her from the world, the architect of her living nightmare. The figure that emerged into the dim light of the cell was tall and gaunt, his face obscured by shadow. He moved with a quiet, unsettling grace, his presence radiating an aura of cold, calculated cruelty. In his hand, he carried a tray with a bowl of something unidentifiable and a rusty spoon. He didn't speak, his dark eyes gliding over Elara with a detached clinical interest, as if she were a specimen under observation. He placed the tray on the cold concrete floor, the metallic scent in the air intensifying as he moved closer. Then, his gaze flicked to the far corner of the cell, a corner shrouded in deeper shadow. A soft whimper, barely audible, emanated from the darkness. Elara's blood ran cold. She wasn't alone. The gaunt figure turned his attention back to Elara, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. It wasn't a smile of amusement, but something far more disturbing, a smile of satisfaction, of ownership. He lingered for a moment, his silence a heavier weight than any threat, before ascending the stairs, the trapdoor closing with a heavy thud, plunging Elara back into the suffocating darkness, and the chilling realization that she was a prisoner in a collector's horrifying gallery. And in the shadows, she could sense the presence of others, their shared terror, a silent symphony of despair. Days dissolved into a horrifying monotony within the concrete confines. The meager rations offered no sustenance for the terror that gnawed at Elara. The silence, punctuated only by the occasional muffled sob from the shadows, became a suffocating blanket, amplifying the isolation and the gnawing certainty of her impending doom. She tried to communicate with the other presence in the darkness, her whispers hoarse and desperate. Finally, a weak voice responded, a young man named Finn, his spirit already fractured by weeks of captivity. He spoke of others who had been there before, their cries eventually fading into the silence, their existence becoming mere stains on the cold concrete. His words painted a bleak picture of their collector, a meticulous artist of suffering who savored their despair. One day, the routine shifted. Instead of the usual meager meal, Silas Croft descended with a different set of tools, thin, wickedly sharp instruments that gleamed in the dim light. His dark eyes, for the first time, focused directly on Elara, a flicker of cold interest in their depths. He didn't speak, but his intent was chillingly clear. He was going to work on his collection. Terror lent Elara a desperate strength. She thrashed against her bonds, her raw wrists protesting with searing pain. Finn whimpered in the shadows, his fear a palpable wave in the confined space. Croft moved with a deliberate slowness, his movements precise and unsettling. He selected a thin scalpel, its edge catching the weak light. Just as he reached for Elara, a sound from above pierced the suffocating silence, a series of loud, insistent banging on the farmhouse door. Croft froze, his head snapping upwards, a flicker of annoyance crossing his gaunt face. The banging continued, more urgent now. He hesitated, his gaze flicking between Elara and the trapdoor. The sound was persistent, something he couldn't ignore. With a guttural sigh of frustration, he ascended the stairs, the trapdoor closing behind him, plunging the cell back into a tense, expectant darkness. The banging continued overhead, muffled but insistent. Elara and Finn exchanged terrified whispers. Who could be out there? Could it be help? Or something else? Something even more sinister, drawn to the farmhouse's dark aura? Time stretched into an agonizing eternity. The banging eventually stopped, replaced by a heavy silence that was somehow more oppressive than before. Then, the slow, deliberate footsteps returned to the wooden stairs. Croft reappeared, his face now etched with a cold fury. He carried a heavy wooden club, its surface stained with what looked like dried blood. His dark eyes locked onto Elara, all pretense of detached observation gone. "You will pay for this interruption," he hissed, his voice a low, venomous rasp, the first words Elara had heard him speak. He moved towards her, the heavy club swinging in his hand. Finn cried out from the shadows, a desperate plea for mercy. Croft paused, his gaze flicking towards the sound. A cruel smile twisted his lips. "Patience," he whispered, his attention returning to Elara. "The collection must be maintained." He raised the club, the heavy wood whistling through the air. Elara braced for the impact, her heart pounding in her chest, the darkness closing in. But then, Another sound pierced the silence, a sharp crack, followed by a strangled gasp from Croft. He staggered, his eyes wide with shock, a dark stain blossoming on his back. He turned slowly, his gaze fixed on the figure that now stood at the bottom of the stairs, a woman, her face grim, holding a heavy, bloodied wrench. A flicker of hope, fragile but fierce, ignited in Elara's chest. Someone had found them, but the fight for survival in the collector's abode had just begun. The woman who stood at the bottom of the stairs was Sarah's younger sister, Lena. Driven by a desperate intuition and a digital breadcrumb trail Elara had unknowingly left on social media. Lena had followed the chilling whispers surrounding the old Croft place. The sight of her sister, bound and terrified, ignited a primal fury within her. Silas Croft, momentarily stunned by Lena's unexpected arrival and the brutal blow, roared in rage. He lunged towards Lena, the heavy wooden club raised menacingly. Lena, though smaller, moved with a desperate agility. She swung the wrench again, connecting with Croft's arm, eliciting another guttural cry of pain. The struggle was brutal and uneven. Croft's raw strength was countered by Lena's fierce determination and the element of surprise. Elara, though bound, thrashed and yelled, trying to distract her captor. Finn, emboldened by the chaos, found a sliver of strength and began to kick against the concrete wall, creating a jarring noise that echoed through the bunker. During the melee, Lena managed to disarm Croft, the bloodied club clattering onto the concrete floor. But Croft was far from defeated. He grabbed Lena, his powerful hands locking around her throat, cutting off her air. Lena's face began to turn a desperate shade of purple. Seeing her sister's life being choked out, Elara reached a breaking point. Ignoring the searing pain in her bound wrists, she scrabbled towards the workbench, her fingers fumbling desperately for anything she could use as a weapon. Her hand closed around a long, thin file, its edge wickedly sharp. With a surge of adrenaline, Elara lunged at Croft, blindly jabbing the file towards his back. She felt it sink in, a sickening resistance followed by a strangled gasp. Croft's grip on Lena loosened, and he staggered backward, his dark eyes wide with shock and pain. Lena gasped for air, her hands clutching her throat. She stumbled away from Croft, her gaze fixed on the dark stain blooming on his back. Croft turned slowly towards Elara, his face contorted in a mask of disbelief and fury. He took a step towards her, a low growl rumbling in his chest, but his movements were sluggish, his strength waning. Before he could reach her, Finn, fueled by a surge of adrenaline, lunged from the shadows, tackling Croft around the legs. The unexpected force sent the gaunt man crashing to the concrete floor. Lena, recovering her breath, grabbed the fallen wooden club. With a primal scream, she brought it down on Croft's head, the sickening thud echoing through the bunker. Croft lay still, his dark eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The silence that followed was heavy, different from the oppressive silence of captivity. It was the silence of release, of the breaking of the collector's hold. Lena rushed to Elara, frantically untying her bonds. Tears streamed down their faces as they embraced, the cold concrete of their prison suddenly feeling less suffocating. Finn, bruised and weak, emerged from the shadows, a flicker of hope in his eyes. They ascended the rickety stairs, Lena supporting Elara, Finn following close behind. The farmhouse above was silent, the lingering scent of decay, now mixed with the metallic tang of fresh blood. Stepping out into the biting November wind, the vast expanse of the woods felt both terrifying and liberating. The mournful howl of the wind now seemed to carry a different message, a lament for the lost, but also a whisper of freedom. As the first rays of dawn began to paint the bleak sky, casting long shadows across the desolate field, Lena led her sister and Finn away from the collector's abode, leaving the silence of the woods to reclaim its own. The collector's gallery was broken, his meticulous collection scattered. But the scars of their captivity, the chilling memories of the whispers in the black, would forever linger, a haunting testament to the darkness they had survived in the silence of the field.